Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the weekend wrap. A day later than usual, but that's what happens when you have events on a Sunday. Now, this was a flawless weekend for me in terms of the predictions I gave. I'm actually a bit pissed that I didn't put those exact predictions down on my betting slip. I won all of the correct bets, but my slip got busted by one of the undercard fights that was supposed to be a shoe-in for victory, and he ended up getting himself knocked out. So yeah, not best pleased about that, but let's go through the fights as they occurred. So in the fights on Sky and Boxer, Dan Aziz and Shakan Pitters, it went points, and Dan Aziz won on a points decision, as I predicted he would. I predicted he would be able to get inside of Shakan's range as much as he did. Basically, Shakan giving up his height as he did. He was actually employing a lot of uppercuts, which was a surprising tactic which he's never used before. Caught Dan with a couple, but Dan soon adjusted to that, and kept his guard really tight, really high, and he was out jabbing the guy that weight is like 8 inches taller than him. So highly impressive. Dan Aziz is a good operator, good domestic level. I think he's probably sort of slightly beyond that, but I do want him to win that Lonsdale belt outright. So I want him to have one more defense just so he can kind of get that belt outright, take it home, and be able to sort of keep that, and then move on to maybe European level. But big up Dan. It was a very good performance. And also big up Shakan, because like he could have wilted and maybe gone out, sort of got himself taken out, but he weathered the storm. Face was pretty much battered and bruised, but he stuck in there. He somehow thought that he won the fight. I don't know how, but it is. I mean, I guess that's just a competitor in you. I'm sure if you maybe watched it back now, you realise maybe he didn't. But yeah. Second one I predicted was, actually, before I even get to that, let me talk really quickly about the Adam Azim and the Fraser Clark fights. I mean, Adam Azim, the guy was supposed to go rounds with him, ended in first round knockout. I guess the guy felt the power and didn't really want it. He went down on the ground. Could have got up, chose to stay down. So, okay. We talk about Fraser Clark. He was on a TBA settings up until I think 2 days before the fight. And the guy who went on in the ring with him looked legit like he could have been competing at light heavyweight, maybe cruiserweight, because I don't know, he might have been just about 16 stone, and I don't even think he was 16 stone. I don't even know what he weighed, to be honest, but he looks like he could drop some weight and go down to cruiser. Awful opponent choice. It was bad, and Boxer need to sort themselves out. I've said previously, I said it on Twitter, they need to either have less fight cards throughout the year and just stack those cards, in terms of paying for good opponents, for their up and coming guys, just challenge them more, and sort of do it that way, or they just need to overpay for opponents for the amount of cards they're doing, because they're literally recycling a bunch of people, and you don't know who these people are fighting until the day of, or maybe the day before, and it just hasn't been good enough. A lot of their undercards have been awful as of late. They've had decent main events, but the undercards are god awful, and I can't blame Fraser Clark. He's not his own matchmaker. He doesn't pick who he's about to fight. But that being said, it's been most noticeable and worse for him as of late. Recent, because I think every single fight he's had, I don't think I've known who he was fighting until a couple of days before. His debut was like that. His fight before this one, I think, was very similar. Had a couple injuries, then you come back to this one, exact same thing. So they need to do better. It was shocking. Anyway, that being said, I'll leave that one. Next was Natasha Jonas and Patricia Bagul for the WBO and WBC Super Welterweight Championships. Again, got this one spot on. I predicted that Patricia Bagul would try and get on the inside to sort of smother Natasha. She actually employed from an outside stance to begin with, sort of causing Natasha a bit of issues with in terms of her range. Wasn't able to get to her as quickly as she wanted to. She took some shots in the first couple of rounds. I even thought Natasha was looking a little bit lethargic and a little bit slow, like maybe sort of the weight was playing a factor on her, but she quickly shook that off by sort of the second to third round, and yeah, pretty much from there she was catching Patricia with quality shots, popping from the outside inwards, sort of staying close enough to her, being able to sort of get the hooks, straight punches. Patricia did well to sort of hold on at times when she got buzzed, but she threw punches back. She definitely was not trying to lose her belt. Just, you know, she wasn't there to give up the belt. She really thought she had a chance in there. It was a nice little competitive fight, but Natasha was a clear winner. And again, I said, you know, she would probably be like a 97, 93 type fight. But I said, don't be surprised if you see 99, 91 cards. And ultimately, there was those cards, and there was also 100 to 90 cards. And even Natasha was like, well, I thought I lost a couple rounds there. So, yeah, home cooking at its finest. Obviously, the right person did win, but scorecards, again, it's not great. And that doesn't do Natasha any good because... yeah, that's the kind of thing that they'll make people sour on the victory, saying, oh, well, look, you know, you was going to get the decision anyway, regardless of whatever you did. But she goes again. Hopefully now she can maybe get the winner of Hannah Rankin and Terry Harper for unification. Or if that one, you know, can't be made for whatever reason, or it takes its time, then she can go and see if she can unify with Marie-Eve Decaire as her next opponent, who has the IBF belt. That would be a good fight for Natasha, ultimately, just because Marie-Eve Decaire isn't a puncher at all. So even though she's the bigger woman, very technical, very skilled, very quick as well, so Natasha would have to actually use her skills. She wouldn't be in much chance or much worry of being knocked out, which means that she can probably take some chances in that fight to get the victory herself. To the main event, I'm not really going to talk about how it ended. You know, I guess everyone can kind of make their own judgment on that. I said in my video that Smith would get him out of there within 8 rounds. I said towards the back end of closer to 8, but it ended up being stopped in the 4th, very weirdly. But yeah, I also said, you know, he would get hit quite a bit, and you know, he would have to make sure to protect himself to not let the scar tissue get opened up and whatnot. He got hit a hell of a lot. To me, he was losing those first 3 rounds, and yeah, it was a typical Liam Smith performance. Like he gets the job done, he does get the victory, but like, you know, you can't take all those punches forever, especially when you go up the levels. So even someone like Chris Eubank Jr., I think, can exploit that if he's going up to face him at 160. But he got the knockout or the stoppage, as I predicted he would. Moving on to the Matchroom card on that took place in Mexico. Now again, I haven't watched the entire undercard, so I actually do need to do that now. But the co-main and the main, again, I said that Erica Cruz would beat Milena Marjanovic again via unanimous decision, and lo and behold, she did. Just too much work rate. Marjanovic actually did better in this one, and prior to this she was 3-0 in rematches, so she did have a point to prove, but she just couldn't keep Erica outside. You know, Erica swung, I won't say she swung wildly, but it was very effective. And again, coming from that southpaw stance, it was just very hard to kind of control unless you've got the, you know, sort of the power and the pop to stop her from being able to do that, which Jelena Marjanovic didn't on this occasion, but she gave a much well. I mean, she did well in the first fight, to be fair, and it was a better, improved victory. But yeah, ultimately she lost, unanimous decision, as I predicted. I didn't, like I said previously, I didn't actually know much of Estrada's opponent, and I've seen parts of the fight. I didn't watch the whole thing, but he knocked him out, I think, towards the mid to late rounds. I think it was like round 8 or something, and that's kind of where I predicted it would be. So not really much to talk about on that. The PBC card, me just trying to pad my accumulator. I put a couple fights on there I thought were sure things. One of them, I didn't bet on, I didn't predict it, but the Valenzuela versus I think it's Dos Santos card. I mean, to be honest, I should have maybe looked at the two opponents prior to putting that on the accumulator, but I just put it on there as Valenzuela is supposed to be this overwhelming favorite to win. It was like a 1-9. And he got himself knocked out in 3 rounds. So yeah, if I'd have checked the box work, I probably would have swung that the other way, just due to the knockout percentage of his opponent. But that aside, I didn't really give predictions wholeheartedly for, Abner Mares and Isaac Cruz. I just knew those was going to be where it was. But Andy Ruiz and Luis Ortiz, I did predict that Andy Ruiz would win on points. I said that he would do sort of get just enough rounds to be able to win this fight, and ultimately it seems as if the 3 knockdowns that he caused for Luis Ortiz is the only reason he won this fight, because the judges gave Luis Ortiz 5 rounds. They gave him 8 rounds of the fight. Because the scorecards were 114, 113, and then 115. No, one of them was 114, 113, and then the other ones were 115, 112. That doesn't know. 113, 112. Yeah, 114, 113, and then I think it was like 113, 112, something like that. So basically, Luis Ortiz won the majority of the rounds, and it's just those 3 knockdowns is what gave Andy Ruiz the victory, which is surprising. I mean, to be fair, Andy was landing the cleaner work and in every round, but just Ortiz was actually just a more busy person. He was taking, he was just popping the jab. He was sort of landing on gloves a lot, or just sort of throwing out more of a sort of a probing jab, which was catching Ruiz at times, more towards the back end of the fight than the start and sort of the middle rounds. He hurt Andy quite a few times in there, but Andy withstood the shots. Most visibly hurt in the 12th round, just before the fight ended, but by that time it was sort of too late for Ortiz to actually kind of do anything and sort of make the actual comeback. But yeah, he got dropped twice in was it the first round or the second? He got dropped twice in the second round, I believe it was. Did well to sort of shake that off and come back. And sort of Andy, knew he wasn't necessarily ready to go, so he didn't really push the pace, but he got hurt then several times after that, and I think he was dropped again in the 8th round off of a short right hook to the side of the head, but got straight back up and was ready to, was ready to continue. So all in all, it was a pretty good fight. It was, there was some spells of inactivity in there, but they were both 2 very big guys, so it was never going to be an all-out action warfare. But yeah, Andy Ruiz got the unanimous points decision, as I predicted he would earlier on. So hey, go me. I'm quite happy with the way that went, apart from my accumulator. But yeah, that's pretty much the weekend in a nutshell. Oh, and right, so if you are only on there for boxing and whatnot, you can turn off the video now. But this is just, I put in my bio, I'll talk about boxing primarily, but sometimes I might talk about some other things that I find interesting on the channel as well. On this particular one, I just want to talk about really briefly on the same time as the Sky Boxer card, there was also a very, very big and significant WWE event in Cardiff at Principality Stadium, which is called Clash at the Castle. I guess you could say is somewhat boxing-ish related because Tyson Fury was in attendance. Him and Drew McIntyre used to have sort of verbal back and forths, and supposedly there was maybe setting up some kind of thing where the two of them might have a, maybe a fight in one of the Saudi Arabia cards or something like that. Didn't work out that way. He was sort of just there in the crowd. He, stopped Austin Theory from cashing in his money in the bank on Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre by, sort of delivering a quote unquote knockout punch to Austin Theory when he came down with the briefcase. But the only real reason I wanted to sort of touch on this price by itself was just to talk about the Gunther, aka Walter, match versus Sheamus. Now look, I've been a wrestling fan before I was a boxing fan, before I was a football fan, anything. That's just how it is. I just like the storylines. I like a lot of the intrigue, and I like sort of just the way a lot of fights are, constructed. But that match, I just had a feeling from that match was announced, I knew that was just gonna be brutality. And yes, I enjoyed it thoroughly. Sheamus got his chest chopped to bits, like his chest was beat red, bloodied, like popping veins. Him and Gunther were just hard hit after hard hit after hard hit. It was just a very violent and very stiff, as they would call it in the industry, type match. And if you do have any interest in sort of WWE professional wrestling or anything like that, that's definitely a fight to watch, just in terms of the level of brutality you can get away with in something that's supposedly like predetermined and you kind of know what's going on. Similarly, Volta had two matches with a guy called Ilya Dragunov in NXT, one of them behind closed doors and the other one with fans in attendance. Both of those fights were also very similar in the level of brutality that they exhibited. I just love watching his fights. He always delivers. He gives me the kind of sort of the kind of action I want. So I just wanted to sort of touch on that particular match there, because I just thought it was a madness, and I really enjoyed that. The card on the whole was a good card. There wasn't any dud matches that I saw. Every match sort of was different in the way it was executed, and then obviously the last match, which was Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre, had the very sports entertainment like feel to it. And again, Tyson Fury got involved in that. After at the end of that fight, him and Drew McIntyre ended up in the ring singing songs, as Tyson Fury loves to do at the end of anything. But yeah, I just thought I wanted to touch on that real quick. But I'm going to leave it there. That's the end of the weekend wrap, and look out for new videos that will be taking place this week, as a special week in the female game coming up. Speak to you soon.